looking at Zelensky's worries, I mean, it will be pretty tight, won't it, to get these in place for any spring offensive the Russians launch, because it's not just getting the tanks there, it's actually training the Ukrainian crews on very different bits of kit.
No, you're absolutely right, Mark. It's almost too little, too late. And I think we've got to be very realistic about the impact they can make. As you say, the logistics train isn't in place, the spares and maintenance organisation, and frankly, driving and fighting a tank isn't just jumping in a car and sort of seeing the same gearbox and the same steering wheel. These are all different types of tank. It'll take a while for the Ukrainians to actually get to grips with them, and also to see how best they can be used in their own context. I think the other worry is that coming up now, we're coming up to the first anniversary of the conflict. The Russians haven't been sitting on their hands. They've been learning the lessons from the first assaults. They'll be combining their armour with their artillery and their aviation. And I think many people in the free world are underestimating what the Russians will be able to do when they decide they want to attack, probably the end of February, beginning of March.
Well, that's interesting, because we got the impression, of course, in their first attempts that a lot of their armour, the ubiquitous T-72 and so on, really wasn't up to it, that a lot of them didn't have spares, and they were hit by the artillery rounds fairly quickly. But you think that this may be a different story this time round?
Yeah, I don't think you should ever underestimate your enemy. And one of the biggest mistakes is you actually think he's going to do the same as he did last time. We're pretty short on intelligence on what is going on behind Russian lines. They're deeply dug in. They're fortifying the borders of those 4 provinces that they've seized. But with Gerasimov, the chief of the general staff, in charge, I would think they're reorganizing pretty quickly, bringing logistics to the fore. They'll be manufacturing ammunition and other munitions very, very rapidly indeed. And this won't be the same Russian army that I think we saw last year. So these tanks and armoured vehicles have got to be used very carefully. And we must be really in a position to give the Ukrainians longer range missiles like ATACMS that can go up to 200 miles to break up these Russian formations as they come into the fight.